everyone, and welcome to the Geekvolution comic book monthly poll party. I'm your host, Captain Logan, and joining me for this month's party is the Curious Lo.
Hello.
And first time on a regular show on Geekvolution, it is Sid Part 2. It's Ian Harrington.
Hi, and I just want to say, since this is the whatever iteration of comic reviews, thank you for joining us for the series finale of this iteration of comic reviews.
I honestly was going to make a similar joke. Yeah, this is the 6,551st iteration of new comic reviews here on the channel. We do not seem to be able to stay away from new comic reviews. Whenever we try to drop it, it ends up its head again. I love talking new comics, of course. I love talking comics in general. And I've been scaling things back on the channel a little bit due to other conflicts and things, and so we just haven't had time to weekly talk about monthly comics. And then Ian suggested this. This is actually kind of the brainchild, at least the initial format, the brainchild of Ian and Steve Baxies. And Ian suggested that. Actually, you weren't even really pitching this as a show, but you just mentioned that you and Steve had done this, where you would go through just monthly each week and pick the best book of the week. And I was like, that sounds like a great format, and it's something that's a lot easier for me to commit to. And Lo, I really miss doing our weekly show, doing Comic Late Night. We did that for a good long time,
Yeah.
And I'm glad you and I are virtually in the same room again talking about it.
Yeah, we just have more friends.
Yay!
Absolutely. We miss Eric. Wish Eric was on this show. He's and he's not just missing. He won't be regularly on the show. Maybe down the road somehow or rather. But he's a trade reader. He's not buying weekly, and that makes it. He was borrowing books from our comic shop, Elite Comics, and that made it very difficult for him to do this monthly because I can't hang on to books that long. So quick plug for them as always, of course, Elite Comics in Overland Park, Kansas. That's where I get my comics. And if you are ever in the Kansas City area, make sure to check them out. And Lower Ian, would you guys like to plug a shop of your own?
I go to Summit City Comics in Fort Wayne. I don't know if they have an online store. I assume so. They're cool. They sell sports merchandise, so it's kind of like that perfect blend that proves the argument that comic nerds and sports people are like the same thing.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
I go to Big Red Comics in Orange, California, which is in Orange County. Nice and confusing.
And I didn't get to see that shop while I was there, but I did get to meet the owners, so that was
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Big
They had
Red Comics in Orange, California.
Yeah.
Orange County. Orange, red. There we go.
I think like technically on a lot of the signs it says the city of Orange, but like I used to live in that city and it just is orange like on the addresses and stuff. So.
Yeah, and weirdly, the color palette is also that way. Just everything is that color everywhere you go.
Except for
all the
red,
buildings are painted orange.
except for Red Comics. Only red building really sticks out.
So what we're going to do with this show is literally a party, a comic book party. It's going to be kind of like your kid's birthday party. We're going to have cards, and we're going to have presents, and we're going to talk about the wrapping paper, and we're going to talk about gifts that we don't like that we want returned. We're going to have party favors for you folks at the end of the show, and we're even, at least Ian and I, going to have some cake. Because Lo doesn't like cake, but Ian and I are going to eat cake. Let us eat cake.
Yeah.
And so what we're going to do
Maybe I'll get some
right
birthday pie in the
you should do that
future.
next time. But that's okay, Lo, because I like pie better than I like cake. So you and I are very much on the same wavelength.
Shame
Lo, I don't know if
on
we've had this
both of
conversation.
you.
Well,
Shame on both of you.
We
There's
have
always
had this
one.
conversation before, Cap.
What is your favorite, though? I don't remember.
My favorite?
Yeah. What is your favorite pie?
Apple, just classic
Okay.
apple pie.
Sure.
Especially if it's like an apple crumble. Lots of cinnamon. Love it.
That's pretty good. I am a lemon meringue guy.
Ooh, okay.
Anyway, Ian, what's your favorite kind of cake?
Chocolate. I know I'm the
Classic.
odd man out, but I'm the only sane, rational man in a mad world. That's the feeling I got right now.
So we're going to find out right away what the comic industry gifted us last month. Of course, we already, by the time this goes up, we'll have had 2 weeks already of comics from this month. So we won't be talking about any of those things yet. We'll tackle that, of course, for our March show. And much of the time, I imagine this show will go up in the month after the month we're talking about. So you may have already gotten your polls for a week or two after this, but we'll be talking about that whole month's worth of comics. And even though February only had 28 days, we still ended up the way the days fell with 4 weeks worth of books. So we'll be talking about our 4 favorite comics of the month a little bit later. Right now, though, we're going to start with our runners-up, which is kind of a strange place to start. But for the format of this show, I wanted to begin there because I am calling that for this show the birthday card. These are, of course, books that we might have considered putting on our favorites for a week, but did not quite make the list. We're each going to just have one of these for the month. And, of course, you have to open your card before you open your present. So we're going to open our cards right now. And, Ian, what would you say is your birthday card for the month of February?
It's Venom, Marvel's Venom #4. I thoroughly enjoy this book. It's like just the take on Venom that I think everyone should have been writing from the beginning. And I really enjoyed this issue because it works for me on a lot of levels of just things that I generally like when comics do. In particular is believable situations that we don't usually get to see in superhero universes. So like someone gets superpowers and is a bad person, but doesn't want to be a supervillain or rule the world or anything, just wants to commit normal crimes but have a superpowered out. And so that's what I really like about the character of Lee in this as he relates to the Venom costume. And I just like that the world will not let him have his cake. See, because I'm working it in with the birthday theme. So yeah, I like that everything that can go wrong for this guy is going wrong in this issue, and it's just nothing's working the way he wants it to, and that's a beautiful thing. And I love where this issue ends at with social media being involved in comics again. Of course, that's what would happen. There's superheroes fighting in the building. Instead of people running, what are they doing? They are videotaping it with their phones. That's perfect for me. It's
because we are all amateur journalists now, all of us.
Right. So again, it's just like, it's a good book. I really enjoy it. It's just, this is a really good month for me, guys. Really, really strong month.
I think overall this was a pretty strong month. Mm-hmm. It was difficult to nail down my favorite for each of the weeks. Lo, what would you say is your birthday card for this last month?
My runner-up, my not quite as good as the regular gifts, but still good. Still enjoy the sentiment written in the card, even if there was no money. Is Paper Girls 11. If you guys have been watching Comic Book Late Night, back when we were still doing that for any length of time, you know that Cap and I both really, really dig this book. I don't know if Cap is still reading it, but I certainly am. Loved this.
It barely got nudged off this month. It was still great.
Same. I really, really liked this issue. We continue to take this places that I don't expect. And it continues to surprise me, continues to keep me engaged, even 11 issues in, which, I mean, I know that isn't crazy far in, but I've certainly run into a lot of comics, and I'm sure you guys have too, where you get, a cool premise and then it just can't hold it for any length of time.
We'll get there.
Same. So I'm continually impressed that this is able to still keep the story fresh and interesting and moving forward on a monthly basis. So Paper Girls number 11.
Yeah, and it helps that he takes his time and will still have a period of monthly issues and then takes a break and then comes back to it. I wish we talked about this on the GNN a couple weeks ago. I wish we would do that with more books, and I think Vaughn is a pioneer for that kind of Netflix model. And I wish we would do more of that with different books. It's a little bit easier to do with a creator-owned thing, but I think even some of those could benefit from that.
Yeah. Kyle Andrews, Renato Jones, the 1%'s doing that. The first trade he calls season 1 and season 2 is starting up soon. So.
Oh, cool! But he takes his time between and takes a break.
Yeah, it's
That's
like
great.
season 1 ended right at like the end of summer. So
Well, my card, and if I got a birthday card that had this cover on it, I would be like, well, you don't know me at all. Why did you give me this? Is a book that I didn't care about, premise that I didn't like when I thought we were doing it. I don't like the story that it is spun out of. Did not want to read this. Gave it a shot. Put it on my pull list. This is Super Sons #1. Boy, I hated this idea. I'm not a Damien fan, and the Tomasi does a great job with this. Tomasi is the guy who's writing John Kent correctly. And when I say correctly, just consistently, and he doesn't feel like he's 6 years old. Because, well, he's not, but unfortunately, Jurgens keeps writing him like he's the kid at the birthday party, having the first birthday party that he will remember. But Tomasi's not doing that, and putting these guys together ends up being super fun, really engaging. The action in this is really dynamic, and it's cartoony in the right kind of way. I really like comparing these two characters and how Tomasi is doing that, where you have the and the sons in the title, I think, is really important, where you have the son in Damien, who is really self-disciplined but doesn't like to play by the rules, and then you have the son in John Kent, who is the opposite of that, who only wants to follow the rules, goes to bed on time, listens to his parents, but of course is impressionable and can be maybe turned to be more interested in breaking the rules by Damien, which is fun to read. But he doesn't have that self-control, and he has, of course, being the son of Superman, these massive superpowers that are difficult to keep in check. And that dynamic turns out to be absolutely fantastic. It's a really funny read. I like that it's it reads kind of all ages, but it's not exactly that. But I think at least this first issue is fine for kids, but it's not a kid's book. I don't know if it'll stay that way. I think it could certainly go to dark and disturbing places if it felt like it. I hope not too. Yeah, right now it's certainly reading like a thing for everybody. And you heard it here first, folks, because I didn't like this idea. I didn't want to read this, and it ended up being very much for me, surprisingly. So anyway, Ian, it sounds like you like this too.
Oh, we'll get there.
Cool. Awesome. Neat. Okay, well, let's go ahead now and go on to our presents then. And we're going to do this week by week. So we will talk about our favorite books that the industry gifted us. Of course, we still had to pay for them. But the best gifts of last month from any of the comic companies that we bought from. And we'll just keep starting in the same place, if you don't mind, Ian. For the first week of February, the week of, I believe, the first last month, what was your favorite book, sir?
I rant and rave about this book constantly. During my last live show for the 1st of March, I just sat there for like a good minute and a half telling people that I wasn't going to do the show until they went out and bought Bombshells. DC Bombshells is like one of the greatest books on the stands right now. It's just such a premise that just shouldn't have worked at all. Like, if you look at the history of the, like, how the line got started with the statues and the covers, it's really fascinating because it's just like such a silly random idea, and you should never be able to turn something as ridiculous as that into a great story. But it's like they just gave Margaret Bennett, here, have the DC universe, do whatever you want with it, just use these character designs. And wow, did she go to town. She has so much fun writing this book, and she also says a lot of really interesting things in it. This issue in particular, it has this great scene with Hawkgirl talking about the way in which humans view their own history. She talks about, like, we have people that look at the pyramids and they think, oh, well, it had to be aliens because humans couldn't have built that. And that's just showing that people don't understand what they are capable of. They underestimate themselves. And could you imagine if we kept all the technology that we lost to the centuries, how far advanced we'd be? It's just this really interesting, introspective view on humanity. As it's like, that's like the really cool, interesting part. But the whole time she's flying through the air, doing loop-de-loops with her jetpack, making smoke signals of the stuff she's talking about. It's just neat. And like a couple issues ago, they kidnapped Hitler's dog. I love it. It's just the greatest thing ever. It's so cool. And then there's just really neat moments. Like they get captured and then they have to figure out a way to break out. And they do, and you just get this really cool panel of them all running to the camera, and it says like, "We put the posse in possession." And I just, it's so cool. It's just the greatest thing ever. I'm in love with this week to week. It's so much fun. Oh, it's the greatest thing ever. And then it ends with like an evil Nazi scientist that has a Megazord built out of Thanagarian technology. And like the bombshells don't have any way to defeat it until Wonder Woman just comes down from the sky, destroys it, and then poses on a tank. It's so cool. I love bombshells. I love it. I love bombshells. I yell at people that they need to be reading bombshells because I'll be so mad if this book gets canned. I'll be so upset.
How easy would you say it is to jump in the middle of it? Does it have like a really involved story?
I mean, it's a pretty like it's certainly more accessible to things. What's the premise? Okay, the U.S. government has recruited a team of specialist women called the Bombshells to be superheroes to fight Nazi super threats. So you got like snake people and the Nazis tried to have a zombie army and all that stuff in the first 2 arcs. So like it's just a really basic premise.
Okay.
And what's interesting is the character development, but they do, I feel, a pretty good job of explaining where these characters are and what's going on with them. So I think you'd be fine.
Okay. Just
tell
for myself and anyone else, if they want
to try. I tell everybody to read Bombshells. Lo, forgive me, is that a Wonder Woman bombshell on your?
Yeah, actually,
I thought so.
I got it in a loot crate a while back.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I want some bombshell merch. All I have is
the statues are dynamite. And didn't the whole idea start with the statues, or was it with covers? I forget.
It was at a convention. They saw a guy who did some art of just generally superheroes in the like 40s, 50s bombshell aesthetic. And then the DC artists went back and did a bunch of sketch-ups of like character designs and stuff. Then they went back to the original artist and had him do their Wonder Woman, and then launched the line as statues, then did alternate covers, and then we got this. And so never should that have been a thing that worked, but it totally was. And I love it.
Yeah, it's real New Frontier-esque. It's kind of like if New Frontier was a monthly, except you're focusing on the women.
Yep. More or less.
Or at least from what I've been told. I actually haven't read that book, which I should admit to because of how militant Ian is.
I will sit here and refuse to talk about anything else until you go to the comic shop, buy Bombshells.
Ian, actually, I should mention. It's closed. It's 9:00 p.m.
That's okay, because you know what? It's a digital first book. Each issue collects 3 weeks worth of digital stories into one issue.
You said I had to go out.
Yeah, so you don't even
have to go out.
You
I
just
can do it right here.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, if you don't have like access to the stands or whatever, this is a digital first book that you can get. So
yeah, most people don't know about the covert Black Ops mission to kidnap the Hitler's dog that's based on.
Vixen,
but, it's
just like likes animals, and she was the Olympic athlete in the Berlin Olympics for her country, and she just decided to steal Hitler's dog.
No, I swear I saw that on a History Channel documentary.
That's
sure.
Clearly unquestionable sources right there.
Lo, what was your favorite gift, as it were, from the first week of February?
So my favorite, and this may be a little controversial, I don't know. I know people have some love-hate for this overarching series, but the Darth Maul #1. And also because it's a #1, who knows where it'll go? You know, it might not hold up, but for this number one, I actually really, really enjoyed kind of what they did with setting up his character, especially for somebody like me who is a Star Wars fan, but I've never really been like super into the extended universe or Legends or anything like that. So backstory stuff is all very newish to me. I've read some stuff over the years, but not, you know, anything compared to what obviously a lot of other Star Wars fans have done. So I don't really know a ton about Darth Maul. I've only watched about a third of Clone Wars, and I know that he was in some of that. And so, like, I don't even really know anything from that. So
he's a double-bladed lightsaber.
Yes, that I do know. So I'm excited to see some kind of backstory stuff. I was really intrigued by kind of the voiceover method that they were using through this issue. I'm assuming that won't, you know, continue forward, but it gave us a nice little overview of his kind of mental state at the start of this, which was, like I said, intriguing and interesting. I'm very interested in this. So this was the same week as Paper Girls, and I was sort of like thinking between the two because Paper Girls is like my standard. I love it. It always made my top 3 in comic book late night, but I think just based on kind of the novelty and I don't know, it just seems like something I'm really going to like going forward. So knock on wood, but I really, really enjoyed the first issue and we'll see where it gets going. And of course, with most of the Star Wars books, at least the ones that I read, they have the cute little mini comics at the end that are about droids most of the time. And I don't know, I think those are silly and fun.
That bothered me though. I was annoyed by the backup in that. I did really like the reference to Force Awakens though. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
I always forget to read those. I'm like, oh, that's right. There's a backup. Because a couple of those cartoonish backups in the earlier Star Wars comics, I just didn't think were funny. So I keep forgetting to look at those when we have them.
Oh, I like them, but I mean, you know, one of my words that I always use is, "Oh, is it adorable?" You know, I'm known for that, so it's adorable.
Yeah, and even in something
in a
like
Darth Maul book.
Yeah, she can't escape it. There's no escaping it.
Yeah.
He murders at least one person in cold blood in that first issue, and she still is able to find a way to call the whole package adorable. Not the package, but something in the package adorable.
Yep.
Exactly.
You know, gotta mix your
sort of like
your violence.
Yeah, it's sort of like a keychain that you get in a present with a larger item, you know.
It's like you get a Predator figure and a cute little chibi Predator keychain.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah. Predator figure's real badass, but then you got this other thing that you can call adorable. So, Marvel, I gave you and I the exact same gift that week. Mine was also Darth Maul. Yeah, I thought it was great. I feel like there was a prerequisite for this book, though. I don't know that I would have enjoyed this as much as I did if I didn't have Jason Aaron's Darth Vader to compare it to, because
I haven't been reading that. So.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not Jason Aaron. It's
no. I'm
Kieran
sorry,
Gillen.
Kieran Gillen. Excuse me. Thank you very much, Kieran Gillen. What I enjoyed most about this was comparing those two characters, where Vader, of course, in his time period, these take place, of course, in different time periods, and this is before Episode 1, and it's and I think this is the first thing we've had. No, this is the second thing so far that we've had that is in prequel period, but it's pre-prequel period, comic-wise, because we also had that Obi-Wan and Anakin series. Nobody on the planet seems to, but I haven't sat back down and reread it.
I really like the Sidious sections.
Yeah. But anyway, so this, so Vader was, of course, a character with that who was trying to eventually outdo his master. He had grand ambition. He wanted to rule everything, and that is not Maul. Maul is what the Emperor would like Vader to be, but Maul is also disgruntled because he doesn't feel like he's being used correctly. So Vader is trying to get away from being seen as the blunt instrument, and he's unable to be wielded that way. And Maul has been conditioned to be the instrument and to be totally cold and emotionless. And you notice that what's up?
I don't want to get into talk about the thing, but have you finished all of Gillen's run with Vader?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I'm not going to spoil it. Never mind. Ignore me. Ignore me.
Am I saying something that would be contradicted by that?
Well, it's just the way. I don't want to spoil it. Don't worry about it. Just it gives you more motivation to finish it.
Yeah. I still have about half. I haven't read anything past Vader Down.
Gotcha.
Well, I read the last issue, but I didn't have the stuff before it. So anyway, but I don't know. Comparing those two characters, I think is really interesting. Lo, I disagree with you about the internal monologue. I think that will continue and has to, because he has nobody to talk to.
I guess he is the character of few words.
He's so little spoken. You gotta be in his head. I think that will keep going. And I like the art a lot. It's real sketchy, but wonderfully well detailed. It's really atmospheric. It reads like a horror film, and I think that's I think it's a lot of fun and sometimes kind of chilling to read. I'm interested to see if Maul ends up being a character with any kind of compassion at all, or if he uses mercy only when it suits him, as he kind of seems to here. And that's also a difference potentially between him and Vader, where Vader, of course, obviously does still have a compassionate side that he's trying very much to put away, but it comes back in full force at the end of those films. Spoiler alert. But anyway, I absolutely loved this, and it kind of feels like I've got in a way Vader again, but with a different take. I want the Star Wars books to keep giving us a dark side character, at least one, with a monthly like this. And Dr. Aphra hardly counts. It's really good, but of course she's
I would kill like a million people.
I would be surprised if you didn't.
I would gladly trade lives for a Sidious book.
Would you agree, Ian, that we've got about 3 or 4 people now that have proven with these comics that they could write that book? I don't know who I'd give it to. You could give it to Aaron. You could give it to Gillen. You could give it to Bunn here. I feel like, and also I should mention how versatile Bunn has gotten, because of course he's writing 42 books a month, and his quality is okay. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe it's 35, but he is he's proven himself really versatile, and he always has a good voice for characters. So I don't know. I'm really impressed with.
Okay, he's never like really hit out of the park for me, but I get why people like him.
No, but he is, and this sounds awful. This almost sounds like a backhanded compliment or something. But he is, I think, like the most serviceable working writer in comics right now. Where he will do a good job with anything you give him. But he hasn't done a run yet that anybody's going to really look back on as seminal or a masterpiece, I don't think. But he did write Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, which is one of my favorite things. So,
correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't he do the really famous Venom run with Flash Thompson that everyone fell in love with?
No, he finished it. He finished it. That's Remender, and he does the back third, which again he is serviceable. He does a decent job with the way he ends that book. It's good, but he's no Remender.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool.
We move on now to February 8th. And Ian, what did the comic industry gift you for February 8th?
The week of February 8th was kind of like a slow week for me. So I still enjoyed this quite a bit, but it definitely would have gotten edged out if I had something better. Like, it was crazy. I had I think 3 books this week, and the next week I had 10, which is just frustrating. But I'm going to go with Kingpin #1. This was really interesting, and my overall complaint is for the first issue, it feels a little bit more like a Lex Luthor story than a Kingpin story, but that can easily change as it goes on and gets a little more street crimey. Just the overall premise is there's a reporter who's notable for being a good journalist, and Wilson Fisk is pursuing her to convince her to write his autobiography. And she is convinced that he just wants a puff piece to win himself public favor again. And there's this interesting little cat and mouse game throughout the first issue. And he tells her, no, I want you to show me warts and all. I don't want you to hide anything. And that kind of convinces her, and seeing that he's appears to be a changed man kind of wins her over. And then at the last minute, everything goes to hell on the last page. And so I'm just It really drew me in. It looks really fascinating. But again, just the whole premise of trying to clean up his image through autobiography. I don't know. There's something about that feels a little more Lex Luthor than Kingpin to me. Um, that all being said, those are still very similar characters, so I don't know how you can get away from that too much, but it just worked for me. It was fun. The art, I wasn't a huge fan of. Kingpin just looks like really blocky. He's a big block of a man, and that feels kind of out of place compared to everyone else who looks like actual human shaped. So I don't know. The art threw me a little bit, but it's got a nice grittiness to it. And the artist is really good. There's this great panel of the reporter as she goes to this like evening party in this really fancy gown that Fisk is hosting, and he's really good. It's just, I don't know, the design for Kingpin doesn't grab me. Some little heads and tails on the art, I guess. But otherwise, there's some nice sharp dialogue and stuff. Matt Murdock makes a 2-page cameo, which is fun. I wouldn't expect anything less. Yeah, just a cool thing. Marvel's putting out a lot of villain books recently. I don't quite know why, but they are, and it works for me. So yeah.
Yeah, Kingpin's design in that is really strange. He is, and nothing else in the book looks like that. It's like somebody else is drawing him, and
right?
Then this guy is drawing everything else. He's in the face. He is a cross between Gru from Despicable Me and Marv from Sin City, and it's the strangest combination.
Nail, meathead. Oh man.
Lo, what was your favorite book from February the 8th?
My favorite book was one that you guys may have heard me mention before. I think I mentioned 1 or 2 of the issues from the previous run of Rough Riders. It's from Aftershock Comics, so it's a little bit smaller of a book that maybe you haven't heard of. It's written by Adam Glass, whom some of you might know. He did Suicide Squad. He does a lot of TV, is more what he does. But I really, really loved the first run. This run takes place, and this is number 1 on the new run, which is called Riders on the Storm. Little subtitle there. It's what I've kind of been describing it as is League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but like with more American heroes, at least in the premise. You've got Thomas Edison and Harry Houdini, Annie Oakley, and just like a bunch of kind of historical American heroes teaming up to fight bad guys. This opens up with President McKinley getting shot, and Theodore Roosevelt is the leader of this group. So this brings you in. It's taking place, I think they said 3 years after the end of the previous run. So this is a great place to jump in. I didn't really see any need to have had the backstory from the first issue or the first run. So, but yeah, this is looking exciting. They're kind of getting into some mystery stuff again. Really, really fun. And this is the number 1, so should be easy to jump into without much prior knowledge. And I really like the art as well. It's sort of sketchy, as in sketch-like, not dubious looking. It's a little
I'm
violent.
suspicious of this artwork. I think there might be some booty hidden somewhere I can find from clues in this artwork.
It can get a little violent. There is swearing in the book, so if you're somebody that doesn't like that sort of stuff, it's not like throughout or anything. I mean, this isn't like Deadpool, but there was an issue in the last run that like the entire cover was like a bullet shot through glass, and there was like blood splatter. So you're gonna get it a little bit, just fair warning. But yeah, I really, really liked the first run, which I think was only like 6 issues long. So if you wanted to pick up that, I don't know if the trade has come out yet because I bought it in singles, but you should be able to find that either on their website or maybe in your local comic shop. But yeah, I'd highly recommend this. I think it's fun and something a little different.
Cool.
Well, it seems very much like someone each week so far is going to the Marvel rack and going, oh, Ian would like this, or Lo would like this, but so would Captain Logan. My number one pick for the week of the 8th is also Kingpin number 1. And
good taste.
Yeah, it's really. I want to mention a couple things that you brought up and piggyback back off of those, Ian. You mentioned this feels a little bit more like a Lex Luthor story, at least at the beginning. I think that it immediately is maneuvering itself away from that with the way this ends. And I also think that the way Kingpin. I mean, yeah, sure. The bad thing that happens is probably also a thing that Lex Luthor would likely do, but he would have been more subtle about it. And I'm not sure that Kingpin didn't do it with his own hands. And that's the difference between those two characters. But
yeah, and that's for me the thing I was wondering is, did he, like, if a Lex Luthor thing to do would be to make it look like exactly what it is, but a Kingpin thing to do would be to beat him to death and then make it look like what it is.
Yeah, and I feel like we're giving away this ending too much, but
Sorry.
no, he would have driven. No, it's okay. I'm doing it too. Yeah, he would have. It's impossible to talk about this without at least alluding to what happens at the end, because this would have felt. I don't think I would have been as compelled by this if it weren't for that, because I need some kind of a sense that Wilson Fisk either hasn't changed or to be more sure that he has, because either of those things is potentially interesting. And of course, this is a story that's asking the question of, at least from the perspective of the reporter, if someone who has done horrible things and pays their debt to society, A, should we give them a chance, and B, do they have a chance at changing? And somebody who's done the kinds of really extreme horrible things that Wilson Fisk has, and someone that has been I don't know, incarcerated multiple times. I mean, you don't have any sense that this guy would ever change. But anyway. No, Wilson. The difference between Lex Luthor and Wilson Fisk is Wilson Fisk walks up and he puts that guy's head in the car door, right? Like that's
right, exactly.
And I feel like this is potentially influenced by, or at least feels a little bit like the version from that show, except in what he looks like. But
you know, it's weird, and I initially wasn't going to bring this up because it's like so random, but you were talking about what attracted you to it. Back in high school, I reread this series of novels over and over again by an author named David Bowker, and it was called The Death You Deserve and I Love My Smith & Wesson. And the whole premise of that story is like a writer who starts like ghostwriting an autobiography about like this really dangerous gangster and like the tensions that erupt between them. So that kind of drew me in because it just reminded me of the story that I read years ago.
Well, and I also wanted to mention, and not to stay on the Lex Luthor thing too long, but when you said this felt like a Lex Luthor premise, my mind was jogged because in I think the late 90s, there is a one-shot / graphic novel called, I think, Lex Luthor the Biography or the Autobiography, I forget, and it is, I think, the same story. I think it is somebody. It's either somebody's going to write his biography, or you're reading an unreliable narrator version that is the fluff piece, but you're seeing all the horrible things that happen. I can't remember which of those it is because I haven't read it in a really long time.
I want to read either of them.
But yeah, they're both good ideas. But he looks a little bit like this. In that he's the big fat Lex Luthor, and he's got a face that's kind of jagged like that.
Weird.
So yeah, it's really strange. But anyway, this is she is almost like I don't know. I almost want to say she's sort of like a female version of Ben Urich, but I don't think that's exactly right. But usually you would put somebody like Ben Urich in this role, and I kind of enjoy meeting a new character this way, and having it be someone that Kingpin thinks he can manipulate with baubles and things. And you're right about that panel with her in the dress. That scowl on her face, I think is absolutely fantastic. The writing is great in this. We've got a lot of words on a page, but nothing feels extraneous. It's real novel-esque and right up my alley. It's about writing. The writing is really good, and I love this kind of. I almost said moral ambiguity. It's not moral ambiguity. He's immoral. But I like these. I like that. It's called Kingpin, but she's the protagonist, and it's about a character study from the eyes in. I wanted to mention this running with the devil thing because if this is putting anybody off, don't let it. If you think this is a story that is running between all these different books, we've got Kingpin, we've got Elektra, and we've got Bullseye, and then we have Daredevil with all with this banner across them. And as far as I can tell, none of them have anything to do with each other.
At least not yet.
Not yet. I read that. Well, in Daredevil, I think we're already onto a new arc that doesn't have that banner over it. So I'm a little confused. I don't know what that is. I don't know what the point of that is.
A way to encourage people to pick up the Kingpin #1.
I think that's all it is, and the other #1s too. I haven't read the Elektra one yet, but I also read Bullseye, and they have nothing to do with each other. So again, at least so far. So if you are curious about any of these, or one of them is your favorite character or something, don't let that deter you. As far as Daredevil goes, the story, and I don't have any of those issues or the last month's issue in my list this month, but it's pretty good too. But right now, it is finally giving us the backstory about how Daredevil erased everybody's memories from knowing what his secret identity is. And if you've been wondering about that, but you haven't been reading that book, we just started that. So pick up the last issue and you can get started on that whole thing. Okay, we move on now to the week of the 15th. And we go back to Ian. And Ian, what is your gift? What were you gifted of the week of the 15th?
Well, I told you we'd get there, and so we're getting there. Super Sons, #1. Man, this just worked for me, guys. I love Damian Wayne. I've never liked a Robin, but I love Damian Wayne. And I love that he's just a terrible influence on Superman's son, because that is exactly what that relationship should be. It's just too much fun. I'm not reading the Superman book. I'm only reading King's Batman right now, as far as like the Bat family goes. That's actually a lie, but whatever. So just seeing Damian back, like I'm really like kind of iffy on it. Like Steve and I have talked about this, but I really don't feel like Damian should have been brought back after Grant Morrison killed him. That was his role to serve, but when he's written this well, I can't complain. I just cannot force myself to complain about it, because it's so much fun to read him like this. It's got all the subtleties of just what a jerk Damian is in every single sense. Like, I love the scene where John is going to sleep at night, and then Damian's like in his room and go, "Hope you remember to floss, Johnny boy. Ooh, 9 p.m. bedtime for kiddies." He's just such a little...
And he's making fun of his jammies.
Gentlemen, word I can't say on Geekvolution, but watch Geeky Gentlemen, and I curse like a sailor. I love the way Damian's treated in this. I love everything about him. I mean, come on, it's really interesting, because Damian is very antisocial, but he wants to be a kid in a lot of ways. He just doesn't know how. And so he wants to be friends with John. And so he's doing all these things, acting like he's just trying to be all tough or whatever. But it's clearly him as a child reaching out to try to like make a friend. So he impersonates John's bus driver and impersonates John's geology teacher, just so he can be around his friend. And he protects his friend from bullies, because he knows his friend can't protect himself without endangering himself. I don't know. That just really works for me. I was curious how the issue opened up too, with like that really creepy kind of scene, and then the big action scene. It's time for Robin and Superboy to take a stand, and then immediately they're bickering. I don't know. It just really worked for me. I'm really curious to see where this goes, but it's the perfect kind of story for me with these two. It so works on every level. And I'm not reading stuff with John in any other book besides Trinity. So yeah, I don't know. It's so much fun.
A couple things real quick. That intro is my biggest issue with this issue. It's a thing that's going to, I'm sure, read fine in trade, but if you hadn't mentioned it, I would have forgotten about it. When we get to the next issue, when that stuff comes back and we find out what horrible thing is going on and what seems to be a movie or TV set or something, oh yeah, that's right. Or maybe if you hadn't said that, I might have been like, I don't remember any of this.
That is always a problem with,
yeah. I would have expected that to bookend it or something, but
yeah, and I do weekly comic reviews every week, people, and you'll just hear me complain about this all the time about, people writing for trade and not for issue.
yeah.
That is a problem in the industry, but I guess the excuse that I always go to is it's not a problem with this issue. It's a problem with the industry across the board. So what can you do about it?
Yeah. I guess either not complain about it or constantly bring it up.
Yeah.
Those are our options. Yeah. I also want to mention that I think this is the best John Kent has been written so far. And of course, again, Tomasi is writing him in Superman, and I recommend that book somewhat half-heartedly. It has fallen off for me a little bit, and then action has gotten a little bit better. It's weird; they have not switched places, but action is more fun to read right now than it had been, and the Clark Kent thing is intriguing. But Tomasi is the guy for this kid. But if you're but like if you didn't want to read this because you don't want to have to catch up with that new character, this is a great introduction to him, I think.
Yeah, and Tomasi he gets kind of like the light, not necessarily lighthearted is the word, but just kind of the day-to-day tone. Again, I really like just living in a superhero world, what it's like besides the big bombastic action scenes. So like I love this scene. It's really brief of what Superman does before he leaves for a call from like the Justice League or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
He kisses John goodnight, kisses his wife goodbye, and just jets off in the Superman costume. That's just perfect kind of writing for me. That's just a really great tone.
Not to mention, it's just nice to have that Superman back and the marriage back.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh, and also Dark Knight Returns gets referenced all the time, but this is a nice little parody Dark Knight Returns reference on this panel.
I didn't need that, but it's just because it's everywhere. But I will say that it's so World's Finest. It's so old school World's Finest. These two characters are rubbing off on each other, and at the end of the day, what kind of effect will they each have on each other? And we have to assume that they'll be made better people by grabbing up a little bit of the other's personality and use that to fill in some kind of a void that they have. Lo, what is your book that you feel like the comic industry gifted you for the week of the 15th?
Are you going to do that every time? That you feel like the comic industry gifted you? I love it.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to work it into the theme, you know.
We need to have like party hats.
Yes. Oh,
I know.
Or like those little party poppers.
Yeah.
I was going to get some stuff, and then I thought I would maybe wait for the next episode and we could just all get stuff.
Well, there's not going to be a next episode. This is the series finale.
Yeah.
Next time it's going to be a space theme, and then when we finally bring the show back, it'll be an underwater theme. We'll all be reviewing comics with snorkels.
We're all like in a pool, like holding up the comic in the bag so it doesn't get ruined.
Yeah. We'll be revisiting the pool party idea, but we'll actually make it a real pool party. The pool party. That's what it'll be. Thanks, buddy. Honestly, Ian is only here because he laughs at my jokes or possibly just is berating. I can't decide if Ian is ever laughing at me or with me. And we move on now to Lo's favorite book for the 15th. Lo, what did you choose there?
All right. I think all of you that have been watching comic reviews with me and Cap recently should be really proud of me that I didn't bring up Squirrel Girl last week. And I'm not bringing up Spider-Gwen for the next week, but I couldn't get away with at least one of my 3 favorite books. Gwenpool, number 12, was my favorite issue of the week for the 15th. I thought this was so much fun. And again, this book seems to just like go in between these like really weird places where it's just crazy and fun and just a kind of quirky, weird book. And then sometimes we go into places where we learn about her backstory. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but I think it really works. This was definitely a crazy, fun issue. We had Gwenpool and a bunch of her crew transported into like a dungeon crawler style video game, like where, it wasn't actually a video
Jesse
game.
Eisenberg, Lex Luthor based on the cover.
And I know, right? That does kind of look like him.
This giant head of him as they're coming at him going, ding.
but as is Gwenpool's sort of shtick, she is very genre savvy, being that she's from our world, and she knows right away, like, oh, okay, like if we're going into this, that means that, you know, like this trope and that trope, which was really fun because she certainly does that all the time in the regular book, but it's always to do with comic books and superheroes and knowing like people's secret identities and, you know, whether or not she's a good guy or a bad guy or a sidekick, you know, all that sort of stuff. But this was a new place that they haven't really taken her before into like kind of a different genre. So that was really fun. And it also introduced one of my favorite characters at the end. I don't want to spoil it, but being that this is Gwenpool, you can probably guess what character they
Marty
introduced
McFly.
at the end. Exactly. And they introduced.
Oh, I get it, because he's wearing a life preserver.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a nice little reveal. It looks like we're going to be continuing this story into the next issue, and I'm very excited for it. I had a lot of fun with this issue.
Cool.
I haven't gotten to that one yet. So I'm excited to finally sit and read that. There are a couple things I haven't looked at yet from last month. So my it is possible that my list might have been different, but I have a real hard time imagining that anything would have beaten off Venom, and that was my pick for the 15th. I don't have a ton else to add from what Ian was saying, except to say that, as I've been saying with this book, you know, Ian says this is what Venom should always feel like. He doesn't like Agent Venom. He's just wrong. But this is, I think, was sort of being attempted in the 90s, and we kept failing over and over again. And a lot of really talented comic creators were just constantly failing at trying to make Venom a anti-hero / superhero kind of character that warranted his own book. And the way we've managed it is by making the book about the symbiote. And as interesting as the guy that the symbiote has taken over is so far, and I am a lot more intrigued by him than I thought I would be after the first issue. I really am hoping that eventually the symbiote leaves him and jumps on to some other people. I know Eddie Brock is supposed to show up in this, and I don't know if the symbiote's going to take him back over. Mm-hmm. But the idea of Venom like missing Flash Thompson and the life where he was a hero, where he is really altruistic. He knows how to be not a lethal protector anymore, but just a protector, and he's not allowed to do that. And he's kind of a slave of this guy. I think is really super sad, and yet this issue plays it for some somewhat dark comedy, which I kind of appreciate. I like the kind of heads on the shoulder motif, and that like people don't know that he's got Venom, but Venom is constantly talking to him, and we keep illustrating that visually. But I think the book does a really good job of who is it, Sandoval? I think he does a really good job of communicating. And communicating that that's what Lee is seeing, but that's not what anybody else in the scene is seeing. And I think that works really well. There's this really kind of amusing moment where he says, "I can intimidate this guy. I'll do the scary face." And he does the scary face, and I thought that was really funny. I also love this book for the Venom mythology. The way we're integrating Matt Gargan in this is really good. I won't get into it. I had a couple of questions about Gargan's plan at the end of this. But I guess we'll see where things go as it continues. And when Venom finally reveals himself, and we get this really cool, bulky new costume that I like a lot. But anyway, it's I think that's the first reveal of that, all of its glory. It's a really gorgeous, for this kind of grit kind of book, and the Costa loves his Venom. He knows that history, and it's I don't know, it's a real treat.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing that I hadn't mentioned, and you can see a little bit of it here. I think it was more prevalent in the last issue. The way I always think of Venom and anyone, whether it be, Peter Parker, Eddie Brock, whoever, is it's an abusive relationship.
Yeah, of course.
And here it's an abusive relationship because the Venom symbiote wants to make its new boyfriend like its last boyfriend. And that's just inherently, toxic. And so I don't know. I think that's a really cool thing, and you can you're actually seeing that visualized in some panels where Lee
but he's very much. I can see that, but he is very much the victim there too, right? I mean the symbiote.
Yeah, it's an abusive relationship. It's not just that the symbiote's the bad person or the other guy's the bad person. It's that they're both bad for each other. But like in the last issue, I think it was like you saw Lee like hitting the symbiote around and just it's really taking some of that imagery of like domestic violence and stuff and working it for that aspect of the relationship.
Yeah, but flipping it, because usually he would be the abuser, and he's getting inside you and trying to change you.
Yep.
And now that's happening from the other side. We didn't even mention the premise of this story, which I think is really clever. And I don't know how this hasn't been done yet. Which is the FBI. Well, some of it's he's been in space a while, but the FBI wants the Venom symbiote to tell them who Spider-Man is. I love that. I love that somebody would think of that because the symbiote was working with the government for a while, and they would know the ins and outs of it, and what it's able to do, and that it has that memory from host to host. But of course, it doesn't because of One More Day, and so it doesn't actually know who Spider-Man is, and it couldn't tell them even if it wanted to. And so we're playing with what's great about the mythology, and we're doing really clever things with the stupid things in the mythology also. Yeah. And I just love that about it. Okay, let's go on now to our final week from last month. Happily for our first episode, we do have 4 books that we each get to bring to you, although it is not a total of 12 because you guys keep picking mine. So we're going to go back to Ian now and find out what the comic industry gifted to Ian for the week of the 22nd. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so I'm kind of cheating here. Not gonna lie, but it's not my fault that I'm cheating. I should have gotten this book the week prior. My store just screwed up and forgot to put it in my box. So I got it the week that we are talking about. So I'm gonna count it. And that is Batwoman #1. I've got 2 books by the same writer on this list. That should tell you like how good I think she is, particularly with writing Batwoman, Kate Kane. This is getting into her origin, and me being a philosophy guy, I'm going to try to use small words like existential crisis and nihilism. But we have this character who is going through, who experienced a tragedy, very much like Bruce Wayne Batman, and who fell to drive, and there's there's like a little bit of social commentary and the way her path in life turned out. But the section that I really like is when her outlet for channeling the drive that she felt from her tragedy falls apart, she turns to like a life of hedonism, of drink, party, rock and roll, that kind of thing. And that's like, there's this great conversation she has with a former lover that like gets translated in, and I just want to read like the last little bit of it. But she's like, you think that you can just stumble from addiction to addiction to addiction, but something will happen that will sober you up. And it's and on that line is the first time we see Batman in the entire book. She just comes across Batman while living in Gotham City, and that's what puts her on the path to becoming Batwoman. And so just this perfect like idea of someone getting inspired by Batman, which is something I don't feel we've done enough. And then we just get these great splash pages of basically a montage of what she did to become Batwoman. And I love it. It's just so cool. This writer, it's being written with Tinian IV. But I can feel the Bennett in it. From reading her take, particularly on Kate Kane in Bombshells, I can feel the Bennett coming through.
Well, sure, because that doesn't sound like Tinian, and that sounds a little above. I hate to say it, but that sounds a little above Tinian.
A little bit. I think Tinian might be helping with the plotting or something. But again, there's these great recurring themes. This is something that, even though it's got really great dynamic paneling, this is something I would love to hear performed either in, an animation or a motion comic or something like that, because just the things you could do with the way some of these recurring lines happen throughout the book just really, really works for me. There's this brief exchange toward the very end of the book where Batman says, "Do you know where you are going?" And it just cuts to all these people that she's met in her life basically saying the exact same thing to her. "Where are you going, soldier? Are you leaving? Where are you going? Doesn't matter which way you go." all these things, and just you feel these chapters, these epic parts of her life building up, and then we get this like flash forward to the future of where she's gone, and it's just, I don't know, I really like it. It's, ooh, I'm getting into it right away. And then we get like this cool little page here of like preview of what's to come. And yeah, jump on it. I'm not reading detective. You don't need to be. It's good. If Bombshells being like what 19 or 20 issues or whatever in is too much for you, jump on Batwoman #1 because it's being written by Bennett too, and she knows what she's doing with this character.
Ian, I love how every time you put the book in front of your face, it's like directly proportionate to your body. So you just look like you have like look at that. That's perfect. You should get a second issue, or like illegally print it out and then like cut that out and put it on as a mask and just like tie it behind your head. It's great. And I love the idea of Batwoman wearing that T-shirt too. That's
yeah. I really want Margaret Bennett to like me, and I don't know. Something tells me cutting up her comic book cover and wearing it as a mask might put her off me just a little bit.
I thought you were gonna say that, like, that's why you kept doing it. You're like, I just want her to like me, so I want her to imagine me with the face of Batwoman.
Well, that's the subconscious thing. You're taking it too far into the serial killer dynamic. So no,
it's true. I definitely and I didn't mean to do exactly that, Ian. But the more we talk about it, the more that's what it sounds like. Let's go ahead and move on and see if what Lo brings us is as disturbing as the conversation we just had. Lo, what?
Don't think so.
Is it adorable?
No, actually,
Okay.
this is one of the more serious books. In fact, right on the cover it says "suggested for mature readers." So another one of those guys. It's going to be Frostbite #6.
Ooh, that cover!
I know, isn't it gorgeous? It kind of concludes what I assume is the first arc. We finally reached the place, Alcatraz, that they've been trying to get to in order to get a cure for frostbite. I don't know if either of you have heard of this book. It's basically like a post-apocalyptic future where there was some like weather experiments that caused, a new ice age. You've heard that story before. So everything is snow, and there's this disease called frostbite that like kills you by like slowly turning you into ice. And they were trekking to this place where there was supposed to be a cure. And they got to the place where the cure was. And now we're launching into, just in the last couple of pages, looks like we're launching into what will be the plot of the second arc, which is our main character going out like kind of cowboy style, like handing out the cure to people. But like she can't like let herself be known because bandits will come in and try to steal it from her. And it's like, I get a lot of Western vibes from this. I feel like it's a Western that takes place in a frozen tundra, which is pretty fun. But yeah, I've really enjoyed this book. Nice wrap up to the arc with a nice little tease on what's to come. And it has amazing art. I love the art. I wonder if there's any good pages I can... This one's a little sparse just because of all the black, but it's got some interesting different like page layouts. And...
I'm turning everyone into doing the same thing I do. It's funny.
What?
Holding up the book to the camera and like trying to...
Oh no, we've done that.
Oh, we've done that. Good. Don't worry.
You'll do it less as we move along, perhaps, since we'll actually have panels in the show. But yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, like look, it's so gorgeous. I love it a lot. It's a great book. It's been very interesting for the first arc, really. I don't know that original is the right word in pop culture overall, but I've certainly never read a comic like this. So I'm really enjoying it in this medium.
Can I ask a quick question about it? Is the first arc finished yet, or is it still ongoing in the issues?
I don't know. It's a Vertigo comic, and I've been trying to figure out when issue 7 is coming out, but I can't find anything. Can't find anything anywhere that says if they're taking a break or if it's canceled or anything like that. But they definitely set up like the next plot line, and this very much felt like the end of the arc because they reached to the place they were going to since issue 1. Mm-hmm. It's hard to tell.
I'm just curious because I was wondering if maybe it'll be out in trade soon or something.
I don't know. I couldn't find any info on a trade because I was wondering that as well because I was so intrigued by what they introduced at the last minute, the last like page or two of this, and I have no idea when issue 7 is coming out, so who knows? But even if it were to end here, that would kind of go with a little bit of the cowboy motif of like the main character is now like going out on her own and like that's just the end. If it does end, I would be okay with that being the ending. I kind of hope it doesn't, but this is a very complete story as it is currently.
Cool.
My final book for the month is an issue that I admire a lot, and at the risk of being predictable, I'm going for another Ninja Turtles comic. This is Ninja Turtles Universe number 7, which is perhaps one of the best issues of all of the Ninja Turtles books put together. I would put this up with, especially getting out of the main book, I would put this up against the Krang. I think it was a miniseries or was it just a one shot? I forget. But there was a micro series or a mini that I put that one of those issues I was just absolutely in love with as really good classic science fiction. This is that way too. What we've done with Universe, so we have 2 ongoing Ninja Turtles books now, and this is indispensable if you're keeping up with Ninja Turtles and with the Tom Waltz stuff, and you want to. And like, if you're wondering if this stuff is real background and you don't need it, hate to say you're gonna want it, especially this because so it's just so good, and I know this is going to really influence the other book. And also the new issue of the regular ongoing is heavily influenced by the last arc of this, or the first arc of this. So yeah, you got to have them both. The micro series were like that also, where they weren't just kind of throwaway origin things; they really mattered, which I really appreciate just in world building. And it's been a good place to introduce characters or to build characters that we don't have time to do in the main series, and this is kind of what the micro series used to be. So we stopped making those, and now we're doing it in ongoing. The first thing I want to mention is the art. If you'll notice with this cover, we have not seen Donatello or any other Turtles really look like this before in the IDW series, and it's the movie model. He looks like 1990 Donatello, and the interiors are like that too. This is drawn by a guy named Adam Gorham, and if he's drawn on any of the Ninja Turtle books before, I don't remember his name, but he is immediately with this issue my second favorite Ninja Turtles artist, just behind Santaluco. The character models are all like with the Turtles. They're bulky, like the 90s movie Turtles, and the facial expressions are that too. So finally, we're bringing back Metalhead, and it's in the most fascinating way possible. We finally given him a personality. Metalhead, before Donatello wound up in him, when people who don't pay attention to how comics work thought we killed off Donatello. He was, before that, just a kind of an automaton that they remote controlled, and he helped them on missions. And then Donatello almost got killed by Bebop and Rocksteady, and his mind got put into Metalhead. And now Donatello is trying to revive Metalhead because he thinks they need extra security around the lair with all of the things that have been going on lately since Splinter took over the Foot Clan. And lo and behold, when he finally gets him back online, he discovers that his personality is still inside the machine, and that Metalhead thinks he is Donatello from before Donatello got pulled back out of it. And this issue sees him going his own way and becoming a different character, and feeling trapped inside of this machine. He's got PTSD because of what happened to him with Bebop and Rocksteady. Donatello makes the mistake of taking him to a zoo, and he sees a rhinoceros, and he just loses it. And it's brilliant. Every turtle has a totally different take on Metalhead and what Michelangelo is calling Metal Dawn, which is not fair because he's not Donatello, even though he thinks he is at first. It's that TNG Second Chances Thomas Riker thing where you have a guy who they are the same at one point, and then they split off, and it's about how our experiences define us. And as you might imagine, it goes to a really scary place, and it's about the nature of the soul and the nature of humanity, and it's real existential. And it's we've done this with machines a lot, but it's both familiar and fresh all at the same time. I highly recommend it, even if you haven't been reading this book. If you like that kind of science fiction, so impressed with it. And crazy. It's not done. I get another issue of this. It ends on a cliffhanger. And,
so it's just like a 2-issue thing then?
I imagine so. Yeah, okay, probably cool. So. But so much is done, and it gets done in that first issue. It's a dense read. It's about a 20-minute read. And I was, boy, was I impressed. It's the kind of writing that makes me jealous. It's great. We move on now, friends, to our wrapping paper of the week. So we're going to look at a cover that is our favorite for the whole month. So Ian, and it doesn't have to be of your other 4, just from anything you read last month, what gift do you think was wrapped with the best cover?
This is kind of coming out just because this series normally has really, really awful covers, and that is the Doctor Who, the 10th Doctor. This series usually just like takes a picture of David Tennant and like photoshops it into the situation, and it always looks really bad. And then sometimes when you get original art, it like there's like this one issue where David Tennant and the girl that he has as a companion in this book were like looking at each other, and there's like a lot of sexual tension. That's just not their relationship at all. So it just felt really awkward. So this normally has terrible covers, but this is mainly just getting on my list because it's a Doctor Who cover that totally works for Doctor Who. I would like a poster of this, of just the 10th Doctor sitting there reading a stack of books. That just works for me in such a perfect way. It looks really good. It's nice, clean art. Everything about this is just, this is the Doctor to me in a lot of ways, and a lot of sides we don't get to see because, well, frankly, I don't think anyone besides me would watch an episode of Doctor Who where he just sits there and reads the whole time.
Maybe the Tenet version. The Tenet version, maybe I would.
Yeah, maybe. So I don't know. This just worked for me. This book's like, to talk about the book itself just a little bit, it's really hit and miss. And I get really annoyed with the way Titan numbers stuff, but we'll get to that. But otherwise, I don't know. This is an okay issue, but what worked for me the most was the cover. So.
Lo, what was your wrapping paper cover for last month?
My favorite cover, which you already called out as I held it up, was
that's so cool.
Yeah, it's a really, really great cover. And this whole series has had some awesome covers. I don't know, they're very different every time, and they're kind of unique that I feel like I don't see stuff like this. Maybe it's just because a lot of the books I read are like superheroes and action, and so you just have a bunch of people on the cover, but I don't know, it does a really good job of representing kind of the feel of it's like a little more serious. I don't know. But I really like it. I like the juxtaposition of like the white of somebody falling through the ice, and then our main character kind of with the profile. Mm-hmm. And there's pretty snowflakes. #adorable. I can make it work, even on a book that's for mature readers only.
#adorable.
Yeah. I didn't start that. The people that were in the live chat started that, and I've just kind of ran with it because apparently I would bring up the word adorable too much. And now I bring it up even more. So that's what you get.
Shame. How dare you say adorable?
So speaking of none of that, my wrapping paper cover from last month is Action Comics number 974. This is just a gorgeous cover. Superman fighting Clark Kent harkens back to Superman 3 and is not at all what happens in the issue. I would have saved this cover. This has to do with stuff that's going on right now. We have this mysterious Clark Kent who is not Superman. We've been wondering for a long time what in the world is going on with this guy. Who is he exactly? There was a really dumb B BS kind of explanation that I kind of thought Jurgens might just run with, and I'm so glad he's not. That's part of why I'm saying this book is getting better. And so we have this, like I said, weird, mysterious Clark Kent that does not seem to be necessarily on our side, who's trying to get Lois Lane to date him, and we don't know where he came from. And so I would imagine something like this might happen eventually. Seems like a kind of a premature cover to me, but I love the cover. I think it's great. It's wonderfully well detailed. I don't know who drew this. I'm gonna assume it's the
yeah. Since we're talking about covers, we should probably credit the cover artist.
Zurcher and Segovia are the joint pencils for the interiors. No, the cover is also by two people. It's Clayman and Tomo Mori, both guys I'm not familiar with. But yeah, it's like Superman 3, but way more epic, and I can take this more seriously.
Nice. And I can't figure out who did the cover for this issue. Letter Jessica. Yeah, their Titan's really weird. Oh well. Some cool artist did the cover.
I appreciate it when the cover artist is
credited. Yeah.
When that person's credited, and when it's in a place that you can find, because that's not always the case. Okay, so that is all of the wrapping paper for this party, and now we move on to our pièce de résistance. What of your 4 books from last month that you chose do you think is the best of them? I will start this time and say duh, and no one is surprised. So, Ian, what would you say of your 4 is your favorite?
Okay, well, I mean, I'm choosing between
Best
2
book
books from the same writer, and I love Bombshells to death. I love it. I got to give it to Batwoman just because it's a really, really strong first issue, if nothing else. It really, I feel like even if I didn't know Bennett as a writer, even if I didn't have much of an interest in Kate Kane, because I'm like just iffy on Kate Kane in general, but I'm reading this for Bennett. I feel like this would really draw me into the character, so I'm giving it to this book as the top of the month. It should still be out on the stands. I recommend everyone go buy it.
I meant to ask you, have we stuck with the jagged kind of interiors with Batwoman, or did we moved on to a totally different aesthetic since it's a different artist?
I don't know. There's like jagged glass on the first page.
No, we are still doing it. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I don't know. The hair is always very wispy, and I don't know. There's something about that just like looks very like wispy and glowy.
Lo, of your 4 from last month, which would you say is the most must-read?
Mine is definitely Frostbite. It totally wraps up the arc, which was already a really great, engaging arc to begin with. But I think it wraps it up very nicely in a little bow and gives it to you. Ha! Presents. Party.
Clever.
But
the best thing about this being a monthly show is that we'll use all of them again every time, and we won't even remember which ones we've already done.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna have to look up birthday puns.
Yeah, it rounds off the arc very well, and I highly recommend this issue. But the whole arc, as a whole, just very nice.
Okay, we move on now to our very first gift return. This is an issue that you disliked so much you would take it back to the store if you had a gift receipt, or the closest to that as possible. Of course, you might end up with mostly decent books, but for a month. But just pick the one that you think is the worst of the books that you read from last time, or that you just dislike the most and feel kind of weird about keeping in your collection. And I have a feeling I know from Ian at least what company he's going to be choosing from. Ian, what is your gift return for last month?
Let me talk about how disappointed I was. Oh, I can do it with this book too. Let me talk about how disappointed I was with this series. Okay, so for those that don't know, Torchwood is a series, a spin-off series of Doctor Who that like started during the Russell T Davies era. It followed Captain Jack, gave him his own show basically with like an ensemble cast. It was a much more adult sci-fi series. Like Doctor Who's always meant to be like a little bit more of a family show. This like people were taking off clothes. It was kind of like Grey's Anatomy meets Twilight Zone is the best way I could describe it. And it had about the same writing quality as some of those episodes. But when it did it right, it did it really right is the best.
I like the pilot. I think it's got a good pilot.
It does have a good pilot. It's got some great episodes here and there. And then sometimes it just knows how to have fun. Like there's an episode in the first season where a cyber woman fights a pterodactyl, and you cannot be mad at that. So I was really excited for Torchwood to get its own comic series, even though it's from Titan, which I'm a little on the fence about. But I was particularly excited because this is written by John and Carol Barrowman. John Barrowman being the one who played Captain Jack, his sister being a novel writer. So I was really, really interested in the series. I loved the first issue of this series. It was a really, really strong first issue a couple months back. It immediately got me engaged. It felt like I was returning to the Torchwood thing, even though we had like a mostly new cast besides Jack and Gwen. I was really into it. Let me talk about something that, I wish more writers would learn. Just because you can write a good novel does not mean you can write a good comic. This book has no idea what the word paneling means. It's atrocious. It has no idea how to use a page turn. It has no idea how to lay out panels. It's jumping between 20 different characters in 6 different locations at random, and it's impossible to follow because of that. It's got the all right. Look, here's a problem with it. Here's your catch-up page where we get like 20 characters and we're summarizing who they are. And then we get a scene of Jack, like a flash forward scene of Jack and this guy fighting. And then we get a flashback scene of these people like with this Mexican standoff. Then we get like back and forth and we're all over the place. And then like after 6 pages, we're finally at the title page. It's just a monstrosity. They do not know what they're doing with laying out this book.
You're more than a quarter of the way in.
Right? It's an absolute monstrosity. They don't know what they're doing. I'm so disappointed because I wanted this to be good. And then there's the Titan thing. And I don't know what Titan thinks it's doing, but this is the 4th issue of Torchwood. I'm going to get this really close to the camera. This is issue 2.1 of Torchwood. Because they're right? They're doing this in the Doctor Who book, too, where it's Doctor Who Adventures of the 10th, 11th, 12th Doctor, year 1, year 2. But the thing is, it's not a year of comics. It'll be like 15 issues and then go back to number 1. And that confuses your pull list person. So they don't know whether or not to put it in your book because it looks like a new series. And it's just, I don't know why, we're 4 issues in and we're starting over the numbering. Why would you do that? So yeah, I dropped this book. I'm not recording it, but I dropped this book. I was so disappointed in just every aspect.
Okay, let me ask you a stupid question, and I'm sure you know the answer to this, but are you sure that is supposed to be the next book in the series, or is it doing .1 like Marvel does .1?
No,
because it could be an in-between. It could be doing an in-between thing.
This is continuing the story from the last issue, from issue number 3.
And it's a 2.1. That doesn't make any sense.
Because it's a new part of the story arc. They're going to be renumbering at every story arc, but I'm not sticking around for it. I'm not sticking around until you learn how to panel. Like, it's not even one of those things, Cap. We were talking about this earlier, where it's clearly written for trade, because I have no idea how you could keep all of this straight, even if you had it all at once.
Not the way you're describing it. Would you agree with this, Ian, that we need to stop doing we need to stay chronological if you're only going to change up time periods like that for the sake of the commercial aspect. Give me the sequences in order if you don't have an artistic reason to do that.
And like
I'm always complaining about the Inmatus Rest jumping ahead and then going back in the past 2 pages in. Snyder got nuts in that first arc of All-Star, jumping back and forth constantly, and there was no need for it, and I can't imagine that reads any more smoothly.
Yeah, and I will say, to this book's credit, it's got like some really fun little clever moments, and I feel like this is just John Barrowman having a laugh. because it'll have like little things where, you know, you'll get like establishing locations, which God, you definitely need in like a little like caption up in the corner. We're doing that a little bit here. So like we open with the fight between Jack and this other guy who's from the Torchwood series, and I was excited to see him come back, but not anymore. And it, like we're almost at the end of the book, and it has this little caption that says, "This is where we came in. Exciting, isn't it?" And there's like been a lot of little bits like that. Like the first issue was really strong. It opened up with ninjas on jet skis, and it says "Ninjas on jet skis, a typical Tuesday." Just stuff like that I found really, really charming, but it's not enough to get you through just the monstrosity of a job they are doing on structuring this book. I am so sorry. I wanted it to be like, that's the thing. That's what makes it worse, is I wanted it to be great, and it's just awful.
I don't know if I've ever seen anybody pick a worst stuff based solely on structure.
I mean, I can talk about other stuff too. But
no, that's okay. That's all right. Let's move on. Lo, what is your gift return from last month?
Well, I had a generally good month, so my worst is not going to even come close to touching the depths that Ian just went to. But
I win the worst.
But mine was Scooby Apocalypse number 10. This is a book that I've really been enjoying. You've definitely heard me talk about it on Comic Book Late Night more than once. It's super original. And this is doing what I was talking about with Paper Girls, how it has a great premise and it's kind of petering out for me now. They're kind of not getting anywhere with the plot. This issue was almost entirely a dream sequence, which was fun, I guess. Like, it wasn't like badly written or anything, but it just like doesn't move the plot anywhere. It just gives you Velma having a dream and then waking up at the end, and this was like a waste of an issue basically when you look at the entire arc of everything. So this issue itself was kind of and then also the plot of the entire series is starting to decline for me. I'm not enjoying it. I still love the art in this thing. I still think it's a fun premise, but premise alone does not make a good book. So we'll see. I'm not like dropping it yet or anything, but I was just very disappointed with this issue.
So my worst of last month is almost not fair. This is nearly predictable if you knew I was reading this. We all know I don't like Dan Slott on Spider-Man. I don't know why I bothered with this, except I thought the first couple issues of this were fun, if not good. I mean, we're good reads, and I like the art in this a lot. Even this issue, I don't think it's as good as the first couple issues. But I just did not like the way Clone Conspiracy ends. I don't like how we're throwing Ben Reilly under the bus. I think it's the most fanficky thing he's written that I've read. And I talk a lot about how Slott Spider-Man is real fanfic-ish. My main issue with this is just how predictable the ending is. And it's exactly what you would expect. It feels real easy wrap up. And I just didn't like it. I don't have a lot else really I want to add to it, because it's all the issues I've always had with Slott, and I will feel like a broken record. There's also just too many characters to keep track of, and they're all resurrected corpses. I mean, a lot of them were the idea with this was we have Ben Reilly, who's brought back from the dead, and he ends up using Miles Warren, I think is how it goes, to find a way to bring back everybody that ever died because of Spider-Man, so that he doesn't have to have all the sad, tragic consequences of all the mistakes he's made. And it, of course, ends up all going really south, and he's not telling us everything. And by the end, there's they end up all being contagious, and they're giving everyone a plague, and we're all going to die. And and we know that this has happened in a bunch of other dimensions in the multiverse already. Slott had to go to that gem, of course. And I don't know. It's just a lot of it is kind of the obvious thing to do. There's some making fun of the clone epic in the '90s that is kind of fun here and there. But I just it's the obvious way to go. And I also overall don't like the series because of how much of Amazing Spider-Man you have to be reading in order to read it. It's almost like because Clone Saga was so super long and went for so many years, this had to be 5 issues, and yet there are at least a couple of issues in Amazing that you need for the sake of motivation, especially for Ben Reilly, and they should have been part of this series, and I'm glad I went and read at least that Ben Reilly issue. But I'm sure this reads better if you read all of that. But there's nothing in the book that gives you the sense that you need to be reading that stuff. So anyway, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Man, I love being a turtle. No, I am really looking forward to somebody else finally, eventually taking over for Slott on Spider-Man. So. And that book is also really weird because I hadn't read Slott Spider-Man for a good long time, and I felt like I had missed nothing. Like they just kept referencing things that were in the stuff I had read like 2 or 3 years ago. It was like
I was book that long.
The book that long, yeah.
You're giving me flashbacks.
Spider Island. Spider Island's what, 2012? He's been on the book at least 6 years.
Yeah, you're giving me flashbacks to Snyder's.
Maybe
Batman.
longer. Yeah. It's and it's weird to say that as a criticism that I came back in and I was right at home, but you'd think that it would feel like more had happened since I was last in this world. But anyway, okay, so that is gonna do it for all of our books this month, both good and bad. And now I just gotta mention party favors. So what we're gonna do, since we're not doing this show live, because we want to show you art. That's the main reason that we're not going to do the show live. And if we get a lot of requests to broadcast, we might consider it. But I really want to put the art in. So that's the main reason we're doing this. But anyway, so what we're going to do is the first 3 people in the comments. So get your hand on the button. That put in their top 4 from last month. So the books you feel the industry most gifted you, put those in the comments, and you will get a digital code for one of the books we talked about this month, as long as we have enough that have digital codes, or some digital code that we have. Marvel and DC are both changing how they work with this. DC is going to digital codes for specifically the books you're reading. Marvel has already changed it, so they give you 3 digital codes for random books, but not the one you're reading. So I actually can't give you a digital code for any of the Marvel books this week. I just have digital codes for, and I imagine those three are probably the same across the board, although I haven't looked into it. I haven't looked real close at it, so I'm not sure. But anyway, that was a way they were justifying the $4 price tag, and they can't do that anymore. So that's a little unfortunate. But we will give you some digital codes, and that's how we'll handle the party favor segment. And now all that there is left to do for our party is go to the cake. Low, maybe next time we'll have pie or something. But me and Ian got cupcakes. And Ian, show us your cupcake. What kind of cupcake did you get?
I went to this local shop called Sweet So Geek, and I got like this strawberry cupcake thing, and it looks really good. And I'm gonna eat a cupcake like the internet told me to, and take off the bottom and sandwich it. So I'm gonna do that.
All those life hacks.
The internet told you to do that?
Yeah, it's apparently like the way you're supposed to eat a cupcake. Life is interesting.
I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do what
peer pressure.
Dude, I'm not gonna do what the Raging Against the Machine, man. I'm not gonna do what they told me. So I also got a strawberry cupcake. Nice. Mine is a chocolate strawberry cupcake, and it's from they're really excited when I came in, and they thought I was buying this cupcake for my 2-year-old. But I didn't. I bought him a cookie that had a face on it with glasses. That's what Freddie got.
I'm sorry,
but anyway.
I was trying to willpower through and listen to what you had to say, but I had a cupcake in my hand. I've been sitting here looking at it the whole episode. I couldn't resist anymore.
Oh, that's all right. I'm gonna take a bite of my cupcake as we bid everyone adieu. We gotta have our cake at our party here. But anyway, hope you folks. Sorry, we're eating in front of you. Really, but
it's okay. I have Chipotle right here. I'm good.
Oh man, no, I'd rather have that. Lo and I have eaten Chipotle together. We broke Chipotle together. But anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed the new format. We're going to do this for you every month. I really enjoyed this, and I learned a lot. I really enjoyed all the books you guys talked about that I don't know about or haven't heard of. And this is going to be great because the three of us are really different comics readers. We have really, really different tastes, and there's going to be a little bit of crossover here and there, of course. But I don't think we could find more different comics readers. And I'm sure we're going to keep showing each other titles that we're not familiar with and learn a lot while we have a party. Thanks for watching, folks. I am Captain Logan, and this was the Curious Lo.
Bye.
And Ian.
See ya.
Oh, actually, sorry, real quick. Ian wanted to talk about his.
Oh yeah, it's like right here to remind me.
I forgot all about it. Yeah, Ian has a project he's working on, and he needs your help. Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, okay, so you've probably been sitting here seeing this thing. This is a Green Lantern action figure. His name is Rotlop Fan, and I have written an audio drama, a script for an audio drama starring Rotlop Fan, the Green Lantern. He's an Alan Moore character created in the 80s. He only has one story, and the thing about him that makes him interesting is he has been blind from birth, so he has no idea what green or lantern means. And so cool. I think that is the perfect character for an audio drama. So I've written a script for an audio drama. I am currently casting for it. I need voice actors. So if you had a passing interest in voice acting, check out the casting call. Cap will leave a link to either that or my video announcement in the description. Thank you, Cap.
Yeah, sure.
Or if you don't, but you're a Green Lantern fan, you want to help out the project, or you just want to help out in general, just share the link around social media. I'm sure you know someone who's an aspiring actor in some way, shape, or form. Who knows? Maybe they'll be interested. In any case, yeah, just thank you, Cap. Rotlop Fan, the F-sharp bell.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Or maybe you're an aspiring Green Lantern fan.
Yeah, there we go. Maybe this will be the thing that gets you into Green Lantern. My fan fiction. That'd be interesting.
I'm going to try out for that, and hope you folks do as well. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Once again, I was Captain Logan. This is the Curious Lo.
Bye.
And
again.
Bye for real this time.
We'll see you, folks.